Most people go through life believing they're in control. They wake up, make decisions and follow routines, thinking they're the authors of their own story. But here's the truth. Most of those choices aren't really theirs. The thoughts they think, the fears they hold, the way they react to situations, it's all been shaped by someone else. From the moment you were born, society has been writing your story. The expectations placed on you, the fears ingrained in your mind, the limits you believe exist. None of it came from you. You were handed a script, and without realizing it, you followed the lines. But the first step to changing your life is recognizing who's been holding the pen. The world may have written your past, but your future? That's still unwritten. And the question is, are you ready to take control? If your thoughts were displayed for everyone to see, how much of them would truly belong to you? Every single day your mind is exposed to the world. Judgments, opinions, labels, expectations. And whether you realize it or not, people are setting a price on your worth. Think about a store window. If a price tag is low, people assume the product is cheap. If it's high, they assume it's valuable. But here's the trick. Who decided the price in the first place? In life, your worth is often determined by how much of yourself you allow the world to see. If you let others define you, they will. If you allow society to place a label on you, they will. But the moment you decide that your value isn't up for debate, everything changes. You get to determine what's on display and what stays hidden. You get to choose how much access people have to your mind. And when you set your own price, no one else can tell you what you're worth. Predictable people are easy to control. When someone knows exactly how you'll react, they can use it against you. That's why they want to read you like a book, to know your triggers, to manipulate your emotions, to keep you stuck in a cycle you don't even realize you're in. Think about it. If someone can predict that you'll get angry when they push a certain button, they can use that against you. If they know you'll doubt yourself when faced with criticism, they can keep you from rising higher. Predictability makes you vulnerable. The strongest people aren't the ones who never feel emotions. They're the ones who don't let those emotions control them. They move in silence. They make decisions without showing their hand. They refuse to be an open book, because the moment you become unreadable, you take back your power. Silence is power. The world teaches you to speak, to explain, to defend, to react. But those who talk the most are often the easiest to figure out. And when you're easy to figure out, you're easy to control. Silence forces people to wonder. It makes them question what you're thinking, what you're planning, what you know that they don't. And when they can't predict your next move, they can't control your choices. Look at the most powerful leaders, the most successful people, the ones who always seem to be one step ahead. They don't speak unless necessary. They don't reveal their entire plan. They move quietly, calculating their steps before they take them. And because of that, they stay in control. The next time you feel the urge to explain yourself, to react emotionally, to prove a point, pause. Let the silence do the work. Because when you become unreadable, you become unstoppable. The world wants you to believe you're in control while it quietly pulls the strings. It wants you to react instead of think, to follow instead of lead, to doubt instead of decide. But here's what you need to know. Your reactions, emotions, and identity are yours to reclaim. You don't have to be an open book. You don't have to let the world set your worth. You don't have to let your emotions be predictable. You don't have to speak just to fill the silence. You have the power to take back the pen, to write a new story, to become the person who decides how this chapter ends. The only question is, are you ready to take control? From the moment you were old enough to speak, you were asked one question over and over again. Why? Why did you do that? Why do you think that way? Why can't you just follow the rules? It started early. A teacher questioning your choices, a parent demanding an explanation, a world that made you believe every thought, every decision, every step had to be justified. And before you even understood what was happening, you learned that explaining yourself was the price of acceptance. It became a habit, seeking approval before acting, apologizing for your choices, justifying your dreams. But here's the truth. Every explanation you give is information handed over. a roadmap to your mind, and the more people know about how you think, the easier it is to shape your actions. Have you ever noticed that the people who move differently, who don't explain, don't seek permission, are the ones the world pays attention to? That's because power isn't in proving yourself, it's in knowing you don't have to. Every time you react predictably, the world takes note. You get flustered when challenged? That's a weakness to exploit. You feel guilty when someone says you owe them? That's a tactic to keep you small. You crave approval? That's the easiest way to control your decisions. Most people don't realize they're being tested. The world is watching, studying, learning exactly how you respond under pressure. And once someone knows what gets to you, they can make sure you stay in check, without you even realizing it's happening. Think about it. The most controlled people aren't the ones being forced. They're the ones being guided, led by invisible hands, shaped by expectations, reacting to the world instead of leading their own path. You don't need chains to be trapped. Sometimes all it takes is the right words, the right guilt, the right push. And the only way to break free is to stop giving them the map to your emotions. A boss says, "You care about this job, don't you?" Not because they're asking, but because they want you to stay late without question. A friend brings up how much they've done for you, not because they're reminiscing, but because they want you to say yes to their favor. A stranger adjusts their tone, their approach, their words, not because they're being polite, but because they're reading your reactions and shaping their strategy. It happens every day. The world is constantly testing you, and if you don't see it, you're playing the game blind. The ones who truly hold control aren't the loudest. They aren't the ones demanding, explaining, or begging for attention. They're the ones who know when they're being tested and refuse to play along. So ask yourself, how many times have you been guided, not because you made a choice, but because someone else shaped it for you? And more importantly, how will you respond now that you see it? We've been told that strength is in volume, that the person who speaks the most, demands the most, stands in the spotlight the longest, is the one who holds control. But look closely. It's the ones who react the quickest who are the easiest to read. It's the ones who seek the most attention, who need the most approval. It's the ones who always have something to say, who fear silence the most. Real power isn't in words, it's in restraint. Think about the leaders who walk into a room and shift the energy, not because they're loud, but because they don't need to be. Think about the people you respect the most, not because they demand it, but because they carry themselves in a way that makes you pay attention. Silence forces people to wonder, to question, to respect. And the moment you stop reacting to everything, you start controlling how the world reacts to you. People want certainty. They want to know how you think, how you feel, how you'll respond. Because once they know, they can prepare, they can adjust, they can maintain control. But when they don't know, when they can't predict what you'll do next, that's when everything shifts. Unpredictability isn't about playing games or being difficult. It's about choosing when and how you reveal yourself. It's about breaking free from the patterns that have kept you small. It's about making sure that the only person who truly understands your next move is you. Because the moment they can't read you, they can't control you. And that's when you finally take back your power. So the question is, will you keep being predictable, or will you finally reclaim control? The strongest people in history weren't the loudest. They weren't the ones constantly explaining themselves, proving themselves, or fighting to be seen. They were the ones who knew the power of controlled mystery. When people don't know everything about you, they start to wonder. They question what you're thinking, what you might do next, what you truly know that they don't. And that alone gives you the upper hand. Controlled mystery is about understanding that not everything needs to be revealed. You don't owe the world access to your every thought, every move, every emotion. The moment people can predict you, they can manipulate you. But when they're left guessing, they lose their grip. Think about the figures who shaped history. They didn't operate with full transparency. They revealed what was necessary, but they always left something unknown. Because power isn't just in what you say, it's in what you choose not to say. The less predictable you are, the more control you gain. And when you master controlled mystery, the world stops assuming it knows you and starts respecting you instead. Some of the greatest leaders in history weren't the ones who talked the most. They were the ones who controlled the room without saying a word. They didn't dominate conversations. They didn't waste energy on pointless arguments. Instead, they spoke with precision. They understood that sometimes silence holds more weight than words. Think about the most influential figures throughout time. They knew when to speak and when to hold back. A well-placed pause, a moment of restraint, a refusal to engage in mindless debate, these are the marks of true strength. The difference between someone who leads and someone who follows is the ability to resist the need to react. When everyone else scrambles to be heard, the one who stays quiet, who waits, who observes, who chooses their words carefully, commands the most attention when they finally speak. Silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. And the ones who master it, they shape the world. There are two types of people in this world. One group reacts instantly. They let emotions drive their actions. They speak before thinking, defend themselves before understanding, expose their vulnerabilities without realizing it. The other group chooses when to respond. They don't let outside forces dictate their next move. They don't fall for the bait, the pressure, the need to prove anything. They move with purpose, not impulse. Which group do you belong to? Because the truth is, the more you react, the easier you are to control. The moment you let someone trigger you, they own your next move. And that's exactly what they want, to know what buttons to push, how to get under your skin, how to keep you predictable. But when you choose to respond instead of react, everything changes. You break the cycle, you keep control, you decide how the game is played. So ask yourself, are you thinking before you act, or are you just reacting to the world's distractions? People can only influence what they can predict. If they know what makes you upset, what makes you hesitate, what makes you feel pressured, they can use it against you. But when they don't know, when you don't give them access to your emotions, your plans, your weak points, they have nothing to hold on to. Most people don't realize they're giving away control. They overshare. They reveal too much. They let the world in on their every thought, every move, every dream, and then wonder why they feel so powerless. But the ones who move differently, who protect their energy, who don't let the world read them like an open book, those are the ones who keep control. Because curiosity shifts the power. When people don't know where you stand, they can't push you in any direction. You don't have to be cold or distant. You don't have to shut people out completely, but you do have to be intentional about what you allow the world to see. Because once you master that, no one can use your own emotions against you. There's one simple technique that can shift the entire power dynamic in your life. It's called the pause. When someone challenges you, pause. When someone tries to push your buttons, pause. When someone expects a reaction from you, pause. That pause makes people uncomfortable. It forces them to rethink. It makes them wonder what's going through your mind. And in that space, you take back control. Because the moment you stop giving automatic responses, you stop being predictable. And the less predictable you are, the harder it is for anyone to control you. Think about a game of chess. The best players don't rush. They think, they calculate, they let their opponent make the first mistake. That's the power of the pause. Master it, and you'll master every room you walk into. Master it, and you'll shift the way the world responds to you. Because in a world where everyone is talking, reacting, explaining, and proving, silence is the loudest statement you can make. Every time you react emotionally, you give the world a blueprint of how to control you. That moment of frustration, it tells someone exactly what buttons to push. That instant excitement, it reveals what you desperately want and what you'd be willing to overlook to get it. That defensive response, it shows them where you feel most insecure. Most people don't realize this, but every emotion you wear on your sleeve is information. Information that can and will be used to influence you. The more reactive you are, the easier you are to control. And the dangerous part? It's rarely obvious. People aren't going to tell you outright that they're using your emotions against you. It happens in small ways. Subtle adjustments in how they talk to you. Slight shifts in how they phrase things. Carefully placed words designed to get a response. The real question is, are you controlling your emotions, or are you handing the world the keys to your mind? Think about this. If someone knows that anger makes you impulsive, they'll push your buttons just to make you slip up. If they know frustration wears you down, they'll pressure you until you cave. If they see excitement makes you reckless, they'll dangle opportunities that look good but trap you later. Most people walk through life completely unaware that their emotions are being played like an instrument. They think they're making their own choices when, in reality, they're reacting to the way the world is pulling their strings. The strongest people aren't emotionless. They just don't put their emotions on display for others to use. They don't give easy clues. They don't let frustration dictate their next move. They don't let excitement cloud their judgment. They stay unreadable, and because of that they stay in control. So, ask yourself, how often have your emotions led you into situations that didn't serve you? And how different would your life be if you could control that? Picture two people sitting at a table, negotiating a deal. The first one is reactive. When they hear something they don't like, they scoff, frown, cross their arms. When the other person delays or hesitates, they lean in, desperate for an answer. Every move they make exposes their emotions. The second one is controlled. Their face gives nothing away. Their tone stays steady, calm, unreadable. They never rush to respond. They let the silence hang, forcing the other person to fill it. Now, who do you think walks away with the better deal? It's never the one who reacts first. It's never the one who lets their emotions do the talking. Because in any situation, whether it's a business deal, a personal conversation, or a moment of confrontation, the one who holds the real power is the one who controls their emotions. The one who stays steady while everyone else crumbles under pressure. If you want to shift the balance of power in your life, start here. Control your reactions. Make people work to understand what you're thinking. Because when they can't predict you, they can't manipulate you. Controlling your emotions doesn't mean shutting them off. It doesn't mean becoming numb, distant, or disconnected. It means learning how to use them in a way that serves you, not the world around you. This is where the emotional shield comes in. Think of it like this. Your emotions are energy. You can throw that energy around recklessly, letting the world catch it and use it against you. Or you can hold on to it, protect it, and release it only when it benefits you. The emotional shield is built on three things. The pause. Before reacting, you stop. You breathe. You let the moment settle before making your move. The filter. You ask yourself, is this reaction helping me or giving someone else power over me? The choice. You decide, not based on impulse, but based on strategy. The moment people realize they can't push your buttons, they stop trying. The moment they see you don't react the way they expect, they lose control over you. This isn't about becoming robotic, it's about becoming intentional. The world can only control what it understands. Stay unreadable, and you stay in control. Most people move too fast. They hear something, feel something, and react instantly, without thinking, without processing, without considering the impact. But the game isn't won in instant reactions, it's won in the pause. Before you react, take a step back. Before you respond, breathe. Before you let your emotions take control, ask yourself, who benefits from this reaction right now? Because once you do this, you stop being a target. You stop giving people the map to your emotions. You stop making choices based on pressure. You stop being predictable. And when you stop being predictable, you start taking control. So that next time you feel that wave of frustration, excitement, anger, or pressure, pause, step back, decide. Because the moment you start choosing your responses, you stop being a pawn in someone else's game. Most people believe that speaking more gives them more influence, that filling the air with words makes them seem important, respected, or in control. But the truth? The most powerful people in any room are the ones who know how to hold back. When you reveal too much, your thoughts, your plans, your emotions, you give the world a map to your mind. And once they have that map, they can navigate around your strengths and exploit your weaknesses. But when you give just enough, when you share only what's necessary and leave the rest unsaid, that's when you take control. Because mystery makes people pay attention. It forces them to wonder, to question, to respect the space between your words. Every great leader, every master negotiator, every person who commands a room without shouting, they all have one thing in common. They control what others know about them. And when you learn to do the same, you don't just influence conversations, you own them. Every word you speak is a decision. Every sentence is either building your power or handing it away. People who talk too much don't realize what they're giving up. They share every thought that comes to mind, filling conversations with unnecessary details, revealing their emotions, their frustrations, their insecurities without even noticing. And the ones who are truly listening, they take notes. They learn what makes you tick. They figure out what triggers you, what makes you nervous, what excites you. And when the time comes, they use that knowledge to their advantage. The secret to control isn't in saying more, it's in saying just enough. When you speak, ask yourself, does this help me? Does this protect my position? Or am I just filling silence out of habit? Because in a world where most people are desperate to be heard, the ones who know how to hold back are the ones who are truly respected. There's a simple habit that can change the way you communicate forever. It's called the 3-second rule. Before you respond, pause. 3 seconds. That's it. In those 3 seconds, ask yourself, is this response necessary? Will these words serve me or expose me? Am I speaking from logic or from impulse? Most people don't think before they speak. They react instantly, filling conversations with emotion instead of intention. And that's where they lose control. But when you pause, when you take a breath, let the silence settle, and choose your response instead of rushing into it, that's when the power shifts. Because the moment you stop being reactive, you stop being predictable. And when people can't predict you, they can't control you. The 3-second pause isn't about silence, it's about strategy. It's about making sure that every word you say is chosen, not forced. Try it. Watch how the world reacts when you start speaking with purpose instead of reflex. History doesn't remember the ones who spoke the most. It remembers the ones who spoke when it mattered. The greatest leaders, the most influential figures, they weren't the ones who filled every conversation with noise. They were the ones who knew how to make their words count. Think about it. The most respected voices aren't the ones who constantly seek attention. They are the ones who, when they finally speak, make people listen. Why? Because they don't waste words. They don't argue for the sake of arguing. They don't explain themselves to people who aren't worth their time. Instead, they observe, they listen, they let others reveal their thoughts, their emotions, their weaknesses. And when they finally speak, their words carry weight, not because they said more, but because they knew when to say less. If you want influence, don't focus on speaking more, focus on speaking better, because the ones who achieve the most are the ones who don't waste their breath proving anything to anyone. Silence makes people uncomfortable, and that's why it's so powerful. Most people fear silence. They rush to fill it, to explain themselves, to justify their thoughts. But the truth is, silence is often stronger than words. Because when you learn to say less, people start paying more attention. They wonder what you're thinking. They wait for you to speak. They assume that if you're not talking, you must know something they don't. And that assumption alone puts you in control. So the next time you feel the urge to speak just to fill space, stop. Let the silence do the work. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is absolutely nothing. The world is designed to put you in a box, to make you predictable, to keep you controlled. And the truth is, most people walk right into that trap without realizing it. Every time you explain yourself, you give them a map to your mind. Every time you react emotionally, you show them exactly how to influence you. Every time you defend your choices, you give them the power to question them. That's how control works. It doesn't always come from force, it comes from quiet conditioning. It comes from making you believe that you owe the world an explanation for who you are, but you don't. If you want real freedom, you have to stop feeding them the information they need to control you. Stop proving, stop defending, stop reacting, because the moment you do, you take away their power. You stop being an easy target, and suddenly the world that once thought it had you figured out doesn't know what to do anymore. That's when you become untouchable. Real power doesn't come from talking, it comes from words to action. It's about understanding that the loudest voices are often the weakest, and the strongest people don't explain themselves, they just get things done. Think about it. When was the last time you saw someone at the top begging for approval? When was the last time you saw someone truly powerful, wasting energy, proving themselves to people who don't matter? They don't, because they know the truth. Words don't build success. Actions do. Instead of proving yourself, do the work. Instead of reacting, stay focused. Instead of defending, just keep moving forward. Because the moment you stop seeking permission is the moment you start owning your path. Look at the ocean. Look at the sky, the mountains, the forces of nature that have existed for millions of years. Do they explain themselves? Do they ask for approval before taking up space? No, they just exist. The ocean doesn't explain why it's deep. It doesn't justify its waves. It doesn't shrink itself to make others comfortable. And that's the mindset you need to adopt. You don't have to explain why you think the way you do. You don't have to justify why you dream bigger than those around you. You don't need approval to live your life the way you choose. Because real power isn't in being understood. It's in being undeniable. And the moment you stop explaining yourself to people who don't matter, you become untouchable. If they can't predict you, they can't control you. If they don't know what you'll do next, they have no leverage over you. Think about a game of chess. The person who shows their strategy too early loses every time. But the one who moves quietly, the one who lets their opponent wonder, second guess, hesitate, that's the one who always wins. This is how life works. The game changes the second you stop giving them a script to follow. From this moment forward, let them wonder. Let them question what you're thinking. Let them second guess what you'll do next. Let them sit in the discomfort of not knowing your next move. Because the moment you stop being predictable, you take back every ounce of power they ever had over you. The strongest people leave others wondering. They don't operate on anyone else's timeline. They don't explain their every step. They move in silence. And by the time people realize what they're doing, it's already done. That's not arrogance, that's control. Because the moment people think they have you figured out, they try to put limits on you. They try to shape your choices. They try to push you in a direction that benefits them, not you. But when they don't know, when they have to guess, when they aren't sure what's coming next, that's when you become truly untouchable. So stop playing their game. Stop handing them the script. Stop making it easy for them to control you. Move differently, think differently, stay unpredictable. Because the less they know, the more control you have. And when you finally understand that, that's when you win.